Life in this society being, at best, an utter bore and no aspect of society being at all relevant to women. There remains to civic-minded, responsible, thrill-seeking females only to overthrow the government, eliminate the money system, institute complete automation and destroy the male sex. It is now technically feasible to reproduce without the aid of males, and to produce only females. We must begin immediately to do so. Retaining the male has not even the dubious purpose of reproduction. The male is a biological accident. The Y, male, gene is an incomplete X, female gene. That is, it has an incomplete set of chromosomes. In other words, the male is an incomplete female, a walking abortion, aborted at the gene stage. To be male is to be deficient, emotionally limited. Maleness is a deficiency disease and males are emotional cripples. The male is completely egocentric, trapped inside himself, incapable of emphasizing or identifying with others, or love, friendship, affection, or tenderness. He is a completely isolated unit, incapable of rapport with anyone. His responses are entirely visceral, not cerebral. His intelligence is a mere tool in the services of his drives and needs. He is incapable of mental passion, mental interaction. He can't relate to anything other than his own physical sensations. He is a half-dead, unresponsive lump, incapable of giving or receiving pleasure or happiness. Consequently, he is at best an utter bore, an inoffensive blob. Since only those capable of absorption in others can be charming, he is trapped in a twilight zone, halfway between humans and apes. And far worse off than the apes because, unlike the apes, he is capable of a large array of negative feelings. Hate, jealousy, contempt, disgust, guilt, shame, doubt, and moreover he is aware of what he is and what he isn't. Although completely physical, the male is unfit even for stud service. Even assuming mechanical proficiency, which few men have, he is, first of all, incapable of zestfully, lustfully tearing off a piece, but instead is eaten up with guilt, shame, fear, and insecurity. Feelings rooted in male nature, which the most enlightened training can only minimize. Second, the physical feeling he attains is next to nothing. And third, he is not emphasizing with his partner, but is obsessed with how he's doing, turning in a performance, doing a good plumbing job. To call a man an animal is to flatter him. He's a machine, a walking dildo. It's often said that men use women. Use them for what? Surely not pleasure. Eaten up with guilt, shame, fears, and insecurities and obtaining, if he's lucky, a barely perceptible physical feeling. The male is, nonetheless, obsessed with screwing. He'll swim through a river of snot, wade nostril deep through a mile of vomit if he thinks there'll be a friendly pussy waiting for him. He'll screw a woman with his despisers, any snaggle-toothed hag, and furthermore pay for the opportunity. Why? Relieving physical tension isn't the answer, as masturbation is sufficient for that. It's not ego satisfaction, that doesn't explain screwing corpses and babies. Completely egocentric, unable to relate, emphasize or identify, and filled with a vast, pervasive, diffuse sexuality. The male is physically passive. He hates his passivity, so he projects it into women. Defies the maker's active, then sets out to prove that he is. His main means of attempting to prove it is screwing. Since his attempting to prove an error, he must prove it again and again. Screwing, then, is a desperate, compulsive attempt to prove he's not passive, not a woman. But he is passive and does want to be a woman. Being an incomplete female, the male spends his life attempting to complete himself, to become female. He attempts to do this by constantly seeking out, fraternizing with, and trying to live through and fuse with the female, and by claiming as his own female characteristics emotional strength and independence, forcefulness, dynamism, decisiveness, coolness, objectivity, assertiveness, courage, integrity, vitality, intensity, depth of character, grooviness, etc., and projecting onto women all male traits. Vanity, frivolity, triviality, weakness, etc. It should be said, though, that the male has one glaring area of superiority over the female: public relations. The male claim that females find fulfillment through motherhood and sexuality reflects what male think they find fulfilling if they were female. Women, in other words, don't have penis envy. Men have pussy envy. When the male accepts his passivity, defines himself as a woman, males as well as females think men and women and men, and becomes a transvestite. He loses his desire to screw, or to do anything else for that matter. He fulfills himself as a drag queen, and gets his dick chopped off. He then achieves a continuous diffuse sexual feeling from being a woman. Screwing is, for a man, a defense against his desire to be female. The male's normal compensation for not being female, namely getting his big gun off, is grossly inadequate, as he can get it off any very limited number of times. So he gets it off on a really massive scale and proves to the entire world that he's a man, since he has no compassion or ability to emphasize or identify. Proving his manhood is worth an endless amount of mutilation and suffering, and an endless number of lives, including his own life being worthless. He would rather go out in a blaze of glory than to plod grimly on for 50 more years. Every man deep down knows he's a worthless piece of shit, overwhelmed by a sense of animalism and deeply ashamed of it. Wanting not to express himself, but to hide from others his total physicality, total egocentricity, the hate and contempt he feels for other men, and to hide from himself the hate and contempt he suspects other men feel for him. Having a cruelly constructed nervous system that is easily upset by the least display of emotional feeling, the male tries to enforce a social code that ensures perfect blandness, unsullied by the slightest trace of feeling or upsetting opinion. He uses terms like corpulent, sexual congress, have relations with, overlaid with stilted manners, the suit on the chimp,